Most of us eat far too much protein. Most of us eat far too much protein. Number 3 is you don't need to eat very much protein per day. 45 grams for you, 55 grams for me. So first of all, there was whey protein. It was the leftovers from the dairy industry. And we are not sure about taking these very broken down proteins, protein isolates.
Oh boy, where do I even begin? These were a few snippets of some outrageous claims recently put forward by Dr. Chris during an interview about dietary protein, specifically whey protein and daily protein requirements. I actually agree with him on some of the points he made in this interview. You can listen for yourself, the link's in the description. What resonated most with me was his comment on what I'd call the healthification of ultra-processed foods. It's this illusionary practice of making products like chocolate bars appear healthy by adding sources of protein like soy and whey. I think this sort of crass marketing and commercialization is problematic. I think it's highly misleading and irresponsible to the public. However, I want to focus on some of the things he said that are really concerning. The question is, are his claims that he made actually true? In today's video, I want to unpack what he said about whey protein and daily protein requirements, in particular as they relate to those over 50, those of us who want to remain strong, mobile and independent. Okay, let me address each of Dr. Chris's claims. First, there's this one.
Most of us eat far too much protein.
Most of us eat far too much protein, but that's simply not true. While younger adults, most, will reach the RDA of 0.8 grams per kilo body weight, you've got to remember that's to avoid deficiency. When we look at data in older adults, there's this acceleration towards eating too little protein. In fact, well short of the 1.2 grams to 1.6 grams per kilo of body weight that older adults need or require to maintain good muscle strength, function and independence. Next, we have this.
Number 3 is you don't need to eat very much protein per day. 45 grams for you, 55 grams for me.
55 grams of protein per day. Seriously, like, he's got to be kidding, right? Now, if we assume that he weighs about 70 to 80 kilos, that works out to be around 0.6 grams per kilo body weight. Now, here's the problem. I could not find one expert or professional association that would endorse that sort of intake. So the evidence is pretty clear. Once you're over 50, if you're doing strength or resistance training, you need a minimum of 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilo of body weight. And don't just take my word for it. Prof. Stu Phillips, a global expert in protein nutrition, says the same thing.
That a minimum might be closer to about 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. And, athletes and even older people could probably benefit even from going up from that level up to about 1.6.
So for someone who's 70 to 80 kilos in body weight, they're going to need approximately about 120 grams of protein per day, not 55 grams per day. Why? Because as we age, our muscles develop anabolic resistance. It's this blunted muscle protein synthesis response following the absorption of amino acids from food. Now, to overcome it, you need a higher dose of protein. So a real risk for older adults isn't getting too much protein, it's actually getting too little protein. And that can lead to muscle loss, weakness, and eventually a loss of independence.
So at the time when I think you need more protein and you want to support muscle mass and lean mass as you age, most people's protein intake is actually going down to levels where it becomes limiting to the amount of muscle that they can hang on to.
Another claim that Dr. Chris made was that whey protein was somehow a waste product. Whey is produced from the dairy industry from cheese making, and He suggested that it didn't therefore qualify as a high protein source. I think it's probably better to think of whey as a byproduct rather than a waste product. And just because it's a byproduct doesn't mean it's bad.
There's a realization that there were sources of very, very cheap protein available. So first of all, there was whey protein. It was the leftovers from the dairy industry. And then some genius when maybe if we mix this up with a few vitamins and some flavoring, we could sell it to bodybuilders. And
in fact, whey is one of the highest quality proteins that we have. Very rich in leucine, rapidly digested, and fantastic at stimulating muscle protein synthesis. Dr. Chris also said that whey is very broken down and absorbed too fast, which could be a problem.
we are not sure about taking these very broken down proteins, protein isolates, from sources where we haven't usually eaten them. And so eating meat is very different to eating a sort of dried up protein powder that's very quickly absorbed. And I think we don't understand very much about how that may affect the body in the long term.
As shown, whey protein isn't a broken down protein. It's an intact protein naturally found in milk and filtered from the liquid left over after cheese making and then dried into a powder. Here's the reality. The protein that we eat has to be broken down into amino acids before the body can actually use it. So please don't take this broken down protein claim by Dr. Chris seriously. It's complete bullshit. Also, just because whey happens to be digested a bit faster than, say, steak or eggs, doesn't make it unsafe. In fact, that rapid absorption can be quite helpful, particularly after exercise or strength training when the muscles are primed to soak up amino acids. And on safety, we are not in the dark here. Whey protein has actually been studied for decades in athletes, older adults, people with health conditions, and the evidence is clear. Whey protein is safe. Now, before wrapping up, I wanted to give a little more context on whey protein so you can feel confident that it's both safe and effective. On your screen, you'll see a paper published back in 1930. That's almost 100 years ago. This explored whether whey protein could be used as a replacement for egg. So this idea that whey protein is somehow untested, new or unsafe, like honestly, that's got to be one of the most disappointing and frustrating suggestions I've seen someone of influence make in years. You may also be wondering, when did research first start showing or demonstrating the benefits of whey for muscular performance? Perhaps most pivotal was the study by Lanz, published back in 1999 in the Journal of Applied Physiology. It essentially showed that improvements in peak power, work rate, and body fat reduction were far better in the whey group versus the casein group. So whey protein isn't just safe, it's one of the most studied, effective, and reliable sources we have. Now, while I respect Dr. Chris for the educational work that he does, in terms of his views on protein and whey, many of his claims are just pseudoscience. They just don't match the evidence. And that matters particularly for those of us over 50. You follow his advice of 0.6 grams per kilogram of body weight, and the chances or probability of frailty as an older adult are substantially increased. Okay, let's recap and summarise Dr. Chris's advice that I'd suggest you avoid. First, 45 to 55 grams of protein per day, or 0.6 to 0.7 grams of protein per kilogram body weight, is too low, especially if you're physically active and or doing regular strength training. Second, whey protein has been extensively researched. Third, whey protein has been found to be safe and can be used over the long term. Fourth, whey protein is a very good source of the amino acid leucine, pivotal for muscle protein synthesis. Fifth, whey protein provides an excellent supply of all essential amino acids. Sixth, fast absorption of whey is not unsafe and is advantageous post-workout. And lastly, seventh, whey is not a broken down protein. This is simply misinformation. All right, I'll leave it there. I hope you found this useful and interesting. And look, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you on the next video, so take care. See you next time.